Now I will I'll introduce our next and last participant for this session. Wadad Wazin is the head of New Educational Technologies Unit in the University of St. Joseph in Beirut. She's responsible for the evaluation, design, development, and deployment of educational technology in support of advancing the university's teaching and learning mission. In 2008, she got involved in instructional design, online course development, and e-learning web services. In 2010, she started developing and delivering several instructional technology-related training to support teachers' use of technology. Since 2015, she delivers international talks on techno-pedagogical innovation and participates in regional development projects. She holds a master's degree in telecommunication engineering and a degree in innovative teaching approaches from the University of St. Joseph. Her communication is entitled Moving from Adapting Teaching to Online to Adapting Online to Teaching. The floor is yours with that.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Shireen. I want to thank also the organizer for inviting me for the second year to this amazing APITEL and conference. So like you said, I'm going to share my presentation. So my presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we did at St. Joseph University manage the change. So maybe like Dr. Narmin talked about it, she called it the meso-level strategy in the university. So are you seeing my slides? Yes?
Yes, we are seeing it.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay. So I will begin first by telling, so in the COVID-19, so everyone knows that has raised significant challenges for the higher education community. A particular one challenge was for the higher education to move all the face-to-face university courses to online. So like all other institutions, in the effort to ensure like access to and continuity of education, St. Joseph University within a very short time got organized and put all the means and in place all the necessary plans to carry out this digital transformation. So in the first week of the lockdown, 350 teachers were trained on the use of Teams. Actually, this number may seem small compared to the numbers that were presented from Alexandria University. That's because our university is about 900 full-time teachers and 12,000 students. Plus, we have like 200 administrative staff that were also trained on the use of workplace digital tools. The Spring 2020 challenge was met. Statistics show, like you're seeing like here on the slide, more than 4,000 spaces were created on Teams. We had like 360 online sessions that were taking place per day, 250 new courses on Moodle, 6,000 resources were shared, etc. But despite these encouraging numbers, a significant number of challenges have arisen. Teachers quickly understood that online education is not simply a transposition of a face-to-face course to online. What we did till now, it was like the baby step experiment and the long journey to offering effective online education. So actually, if we're gonna look at the presentation, I mean, what we had the first months of the confinement, faculty's challenges focuses on the tools and materials that they can use to replace their face-to-face classes. How can I invite my students to follow my session? How can I share my slides? How to make them attendees so they don't meet the teacher? How can I ban recording sessions? So all the questions are related to technical and administrative aspects of teaching online. Also, the COVID-19 crisis has brought overabundance of advice and have offered hundreds of tips and tricks, but all of them are, I'm not going to say all of them, but most of them were without the contextualizing knowledge needed to judge which teaching tactic is likely to work and where. So teachers started to ask more about the effectiveness of these online sessions, the engagement of students and their motivation about the group works during asynchronous sessions. Sorry, I continue? Okay.
Yes, it's okay. You can continue.
Yes. So as the pandemic persists, the next academic year will be another big challenge for all teachers, because it's not about adapting the course to online environment, but it's more about rethinking the course design for online delivery and skill. So if we go back to, I'm going to go back with you to the first period in March 2020, the first, I do not remember how we call it, the first R. So in March 2020, so if we go back to March and how the university responded to this urgent request caused by COVID-19, her response was very organized, structured by set of steps. We had a clear action plan based on known organization environment was defined to move the class from face-to-face to complete online. And this is referred in management as the planned change. It's a top-down management. But during the confinement period, faculty members have been challenged to find the creative and innovative resolve to act and learn on the go. So much of the experiments, okay, I went quickly. So much of experiments has taken place. Some has succeeded, others have failed. We have also observed different adoptions by discipline. Some teachers have opted for exclusively synchronous sessions. Others have privileged asynchronous work. Some preferred Zoom, even if it cuts off after 40 minutes, but they found it much easier than Teams. At this level, the university have given teachers the freedom to choose the tool, the method they want, as long as we ensure the main mission of the university, teaching our young, the education of our young. So plus this first transition to distance learning has called for many bodies of the university, not only the IT department and the education and technology unit, but we have also the academic and the administrative districtorate, the human resources. So it was a multi-level and cross-organizational change. And those elements define what I show on my slide, what we call the emergent change, that emphasize the need to be responsive and adaptive, because that change is constantly around us. So the adventure is a crisis that one accepts, and the crisis is an adventure that one rejects. This is what Bertrand Piccard says. And we at the university, at St. Joseph University, we decided to take the crisis and transform it into an e-learning adventure. So phase two is not about solving problems. It's about building on best practices, defining what works and what did not work, what classes should be taught remotely and which should remain on campus, which intra-campus classes should be supplemented with technology, and things like this. So what we did, actually, in June 2020, there is an e-learning commission chaired by the rector that was created to define a framework e-learning at USG and to develop a course digital transformation guide. The first action that has been taken by the commission was to organize and run focus group among faculty and students. The objective of this focus group was to collect feedback from teachers on their distance learning experience so that the guide for designing an online course meets their needs and identifies successful practices, to collect feedback from students on their distance learning experience in order to better understand their attitude, and finally, recommend improvement or change for the next academic year. So we collected data through 17 focus groups in which 160 teachers participated. Our sample population included full-time and part-time professors from all the universities program. As for the student, due to the tight deadline for this action, it was really impossible to organize proper focus group with them. And we will be doing this, we will be conducting focus group end of this semester. However, it seemed important to get their feedback even in an informal way. So it was then decided to ask some students to collect anonymous responses from their friends from different majors. And we addressed a single question, list the positive and negative aspects of online learning, highlighting successful online teaching practices that made the difference compared to face-to-face, as well as the flaws which compromised this teaching. Actually, we had in a short time of 48 hours, 15 students that we got the answer of 15 students from different major: medicine, pharmacy, engineering, translation, and law. So what did we learn from the teacher, from this focus group that we had with teachers? Donc, even if the teacher were generally satisfied, even proud sometimes with their experience, they were aware that the fact that the challenge to be taken up at the beginning of the year 2021 is even greater. And this at many levels. First level, the strategic communication, because teachers and students will like to have a more responsive decision-making process with clear guidelines on the measures to be taken to organize the online teaching and learning in the new academic year. Second point, on a techno-pedagogical level, because the trial and error will no longer be allowed. It's important to have a guide, training courses, list of successful practices, especially that not all faculties members are comfortable with virtual classroom. And there is a digital divide between those who have never used digital and the teacher who are aware and adapt of newer technology. Because students compared and made pressure on less tech-savvy faculty. Third point, it concerned the technological infrastructure. When we move from on-campus to remote learning, it raises issues related to access and equity. So the immediate logistical challenge of ensuring students and teachers sometimes have the basic technology they need to teach and learn. Plus, we have the problem in Lebanon of electricity, internet connection, which have been considered as the main obstacle that have compromised online education. And finally, on a personal commitment, teachers quickly understood that online is not a simple transposition, as we said, but that it's important to define a new course for the student that is clear, simple, effective, stimulating. So all of this is time and resource consuming. So what we did, and when we saw and all these analyzed, before I need to talk a little bit about the students, even though we have like limited of the online teaching experience because we have only 15. So for the feedback, it's actually they said that the way online education during COVID was a way to save their year. Some said that theoretical courses are more interesting online as commented videos, but they had expressed the communication issue with the teacher, the lack of interaction, the inability to perform practical work. So how did we react? The action plan involving the various bodies of the university was decided. I'm gonna list all the items. How did we decide? So how did we write, this action plan? The subcommittee drew up a summary report which suggests an action plan actually involving the various bodies of the university. The first one is addressed to the author of the ESG guide for designing an online course. I'm gonna give you an example of this. For example, so this is in our report, it's in French. So we have all the actions that were related and discussed in the focus group. And we divided this action plan in two phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The green color, it means we already did. So we did it in the phase 1. It means between July and August. And the phase 2 is during this academic year. So first, the teachers wanted to have in the guide the principle and the concept of teaching, distance teaching, how they can interact and to favorize the interaction with the students. They need to have like tutorials that were classified, simple and classified by, discipline. So the second point that was in our action plan, it was concerned the training and support. So if you can see here, all the teachers, they understood that it's not a matter of having the tools. We need to have like trainings that work. The importance of both aspects of the online teaching, the technical and the pedagogical one. So they asked also to organize for teacher and also for student to have like trainings and also to create among the students like a network of ICT referee, like the one that they have for teachers. The third point, it concerns the governance. At the governance level, the problem was the first phase, it was the communication. And they talked about the communication to be more proactive, that students have also their own guidelines, that the university active works with the government to decide about the recognition of all the courses and the programs that are taught online, and decision to have clear decisions. At the academic level, we had also suggestion and action plan, asking in this plan, so teachers and the academic, they establish a clear strategy for the organization of online education and to standardize the schedule and duration of online sessions, etc. We have also at administrative and IT management to foresee a call center to respond to requests from teachers. So this is said. How did we produce? What did you produce to answer all these needs? The first point that we addressed was the practical guide for designing an online course. This guide, actually, we have it into an interactive form. The study that we had with the focus group helped us design this practical guide. It offers hands-on process that will help teachers design and teach an effective online course, including tips, suggestions, resources needed to be developed and manage online instruction. I will show you. This is our guide.
2 minutes.
Yes.
2 minutes.
Okay. Wait. This is our guide, so you can have it on this link. It's in French. First of thing, we decided about the glossary, so all the community had the same language. We're talking about the same language. Hybrid, presential, virtual. We divided it into five phases. Phase 1, planification to evaluation. And each phase, let's say we take the phase 2, each phase is divided into action. And for each point, when we have the same template, so we have the introduction, the example, the tools, the recommendation. And each time we have with the tool something, it points to like a tool, a digital tool. When we click on it, we'll have the tutorial. It was exactly what they wanted to have. Second, this is for the tools divided into discipline. The second point, it was the self-assessment tool, e-learning maturity level. This to help the teacher evaluate its level in the development of online courses. It's kind of checklist divided into conception and delivery, design and delivery. And for each step, we can have the 3 levels. This is the basic, this is intermediate, and advanced. We created an online community for practice. This is actually, it's very important point, because we saw that teachers, when they talk to other teachers, they understand more the use of certain digital tools. All this was launched in September, so the participation a little bit shy, but we can have those. So this space is over Moodle. We have like here the forum, one of teams. You can see many teachers. Some of them are sharing best practices, like this doctor from the Faculty of Medicine. For the training, we had in August 3 trainings, even though we had the explosion. And finally, the student guideline. I will finish by saying that, like all my colleagues in the panel talked about this is the time to act is now, because what is after COVID will never be like before COVID. So a point very important that was addressed also, the important role of each stakeholder. We need to be, to all of us, co-author in this pedagogical transformation. And thank you.
Thank you, Wedad. Merci de cette intervention très, très riche. Now it's the question times. The chat text box is empty. I have seen only one comment from Nariman on Wedad's communication. She said that it's true. What we accepted in spring, we cannot accept now in order, I mean the design of the courses and how we deliver courses. If Nariman, you want to add something to Wedad? No.
Actually, you know, it's quite nice to see how comprehensively did University of St. Joseph look at online learning and at the approach to support faculty and to determine maturity assessment toolkits and guidelines and so forth. So I think it's really one of the good examples in our region, which are worth looking into.
Yes, any questions from any participant? Do you have questions for the 4 speakers? Vous avez des questions? There's a question for Wadad. How can you manage the final exam if it will be online?
Okay. Actually, we had experience during the first phase, so the second semester of last year. The exams, it's not about shifting them to online, it's about redesigning them. Because because of the fraud and because of the distance, we're not sure that students are working alone. So we need to have like assessment that are kind of personalized. When we have small effective, it's easy, we can couple it with the exam and oral exam. But when we have big effectives, this is a problem. So it was really a challenge, especially that in our country, there is no clear law decision that admit the e-assessments. So we had to manage them by changing sometimes to the exam into étude de cas cases, or to do like both exams, oral and the written exam. For the written exam, to shuffle between questions maybe, and things like this.
Thank you, Wadad. There are questions also for the speakers. Most research about assessing online makes reference to move away from high-stakes exams to more performance-based, authentic assessment that helps promote academic integrity. This is Nariman.
Yes.
If there is no question, we can pass to Professor Rushdie in order to make the conclusion of this first session. Any questions before we go to Professor Rushdie?
If you allow me, I would like to ask a question to Wadad Wazin Gergi from Lebanon. Thank you very much for this very nice presentation. I'm impressed by all the work you have done in such a short time. Of course, one of the problems that we probably all face is the acceptance by our colleagues, by the academic staff. So this approach that you have, is it widely accepted in your institution? Is everyone willing to work towards a more sustainable and a longer lasting change of our teaching, or are many academic staff still thinking, well, this is a virus, it will go away and then I will do what I have done before?
Yes, actually, you're completely right. The unit that I had, the education technology unit, started working since 2005, and we had this problem since then, so almost 15 years. And this resistance is sometimes, we can say it's by discipline. So some kind of majors are more resistant than others. But like I always like to refer to management models to like change models. The first element is the urgency, because COVID did not leave us any plan B. So it was urgent. We have no plan B to do. Either we go online and we teach, or we leave. So since the urgency is here, and COVID managed to impose it, all the teachers, and we're kind of surprised a little bit that all the teachers were into this. They were into this because we are already where the plan were already prepared. We have our digital environment. We have our platform Moodle. We have Teams. We have all of this. So we are prepared, and some of the teachers were prepared. The other, they are going with the flow, because the idea now is to keep this urgency. Not maybe COVID, but the urgency is the business model of the university. Especially in Lebanon, we're 45 private university, and the number of students is limited. So we cannot go back to what we used to do because the future is different. So now to sustain this use and this to ban this resistant ban, that means to control this resistant, it's by looking on the opposite, on the positive side of the business model of the university. What will we do? So maybe I think that it's not solving all the resistance, but it manages a lot of them. Manage a lot.
Thank you very much.
There are any questions now? Nariman, she says part of what an institutional strategy will consider will be actually managing change in culture among not just faculty, but all stakeholders. It's a comment from Nariman. Any questions before we go to Professor Rushdi? So I will leave the floor to Professor Rushdi. Adghada, you want to say something?
Well, actually, I to Professor Hasenkopf. Actually, we spoke in different interventions since this morning about surveys and the feedback of different students and colleagues, professors. So, and in Alexandria University, for instance, we have divided this by sector, by study sectors, so life sciences, engineering, humanities, and so on. So I would like to know whether in France there was different responses to this pandemic and the practices for e-learning that you can attribute to the discipline, or that you find different in different disciplines. Thank you very much.
Yes, there are differences in between disciplines, but I'm not sure, because I only know my university, if it's related to the discipline or if it's only related to the people. Might be that just the crowd of chemists are different from the crowd of physicists or biologists or in the social sciences. Of course, we all, and I agree with what was just said before, we all adapted to the emergency. So that was no problem. All of our teachers, whatever discipline, adapted to the emergency. But I do observe that depending on disciplines, now there are some who are actually moving forward and who think that we will not go back to what was there before. And some other disciplines, some other departments are much more resistant and are just waiting that this is over and we can go back to what we had before. And that's actually on our institutional level at the moment the most difficult thing, that we have to deal with these both aspects. And this is why I try to show my approach, where I'm rather addressing the individual teacher and trying to convince the individual teacher that what you are doing, try to invest it so that it is helpful for you and for this institution, but also for yourself for a longer time. If you invest your time in setting up video lectures, or you invest your time in trying to figure out how to do co-model teaching, and you don't think about all the pedagogical value around it, then actually you waste your time and you don't want to do this. So I try to convince them individually like this, because we do not have the whole university going in the same direction. So I admire you, or I'm jealous if this is the case in Lebanon. It's certainly not the case in our university.
Thank you. Is there any more questions? No questions? So, Professor Rushdi, I can leave the floor for you to conclude, to make the conclusion of this first session. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Shireen. Thank you for our distinguished speakers. Thank you for the audience for being forbearing. And it seems from what has been presented that we all experience the same thing, regardless where we come from. Are we coming from whatever, the English sector, the French sector, the Arabic sector? We all had the same problems, and we all acted similarly. And I think, and I can say, and I can claim that we all succeeded in overcoming the pandemic. Let's say what resulted from the pandemic, what resulted from the lockdown, and I can tell that from all the different experiences that have been shown during the past, I would say 1.5 hours or so. I will try to be concise and limit myself for the next 6 minutes just to conserve the time. And the major problem we have and will still have is to address the resistance to change, as was Bernie saying. I will try to conclude with the main point that I personally extracted from what has been presented. And basically, we are running through 3 different scenarios as far as teaching is concerned during the pandemic, and probably later on the video lecturing system on one hand. On the second hand, we have the co-modal teaching and the blended learning approach. And in addition to that, I noticed that we all have to be and continue being innovative about our pedagogical approach and try to be innovative and creative in our way of teaching. And in the same time, we have to create awareness and spread the knowledge that there is a great difference between face-to-face teaching and online teaching. Many of us are adopting the same approach. What they do is simply they record their lecture for 1.5 hours and they simply put it for the student to watch it. I think this is not an ideal solution as what was presented at least today, and from our own from our perspective, it's completely different. The philosophy is different, and we have to all realize that. In addition to that, there has to be a good integration between 2 levels of authority in all the countries. One of them is the higher education system, whether administered by a minister or a council or whatever, and any of the governmental board, in order to come up with legislation that permits officially to have this online teaching that we are all adopting in our teaching and learning approaches, because many of us did not have this into their bylaws and their regulations and stuff like that. And we have already started this step in Egypt, and we have changed the law to include this kind of education. On top of this, we have to reconsider the quality assurance standard. I mean, the whole world is changing, and I think that we will keep these different scenarios in the next at least few years. So all the quality assurance standard will have to be reviewed in order to accommodate the different new adopted learning technique, and to make sure that every accredited institution is on the level of the required quality assurance and all the related standards. And also, I will stress on what Dr. Nariman said. So Dr. Nariman mentioned that we have all the higher education institutions, they will have to work on the creation and the development of smart partnership. And there are many opportunities worldwide to create such partnership in order to be on the good level of offering a good and quality online education. In addition to that, we have to be all fit to the digital age requirement, and this can be accomplished through the few main points that I just mentioned. Last but not least, I think I have 2 more points. yes, we have to keep continuing, and we have to sustain the building practices and good practices. And what I've witnessed this morning, that we have excellent practices in Lebanon. We have I don't want to be to say excellent, because I come from here. We have fairly good experience in Egypt, whether in Alexandria University or other universities. So I think through all the organizations, such like the Comprimo, all kinds of association, we all have to adopt on exchanging those good practices. I mean, we have already built, and I think by the end of this academic year, we will have a clear plan of the best practices, and we have to interchange those best practices. We still have challenges that are facing all of us, including the ways of communication, the infrastructure that we are using, the problem of digital divide that many of our esteemed guests talked about today. We have a clear digital divide because the lack of availability of new ways of communication for a sector of students. And in addition to all this, the personal commitment. I have to be, as an instructor, I have to be really personally committed to whatever I'm doing, to provide a quality education online. And as was concluded by Wadad, it is time to act now. Thank you. I think I have summarized the main point that were raised, and we are on time with, let's say, 14 minutes delay. We kept our time for this session. Thank you all for being here this morning. Thank you for our nice audience for being forbearing during the past almost 2 hours, or from the early morning. Thank you, Ghada, for organizing this prestigious event. I wish you all the success, and I wish that you will have more and more fruitful discussion. And I hope to see you all in the future, face to face, not online. Thank you.
Yes, we hope.
Thank you very much, Professor Zahran, for doing this session. Thank you for the eminent contributors. Thank you, Professor Kakish, for co-presiding the session with Professor Zahran. Thank you for comprehensive comments by the end. And thanks God that we are not late, because we could catch up. And actually, the following session, I invite you all. Just I would answer Professor Shaniti from Tunisia. Yes, Lilia, the link is the same.